Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point. And today, Tatiana Jefferson was finally laid to rest. As you guys know, her father had a probate judge, enter an injunction to stop the funeral service that was being planned by her, I guess it was her mother's side of the family and her siblings. And so there was a lot of controversy because her father was saying that he was being left out of the planning, and then the aunt came out and said that he wasn't the biological father, but he said that he was the father on the birth certificate, and he was the father all her life. And so in the last video that I did, I was like, where is her mother? Is her mother still alive? What's going on? And then somebody told me in the comments that the mother was alive, that she was ill and in the hospital. And then it seemed like after I was told that, then future articles mentioned the mom. And so one article I read, they said that they were preparing the mom so that she would be able to come to the funeral, because that was one of the other questions I had was, if the mother is in the hospital, why are they having the funeral without the mom? So not sure what the mother's medical condition was. Somebody also commented on my last video that the mom, was pretty much, I don't know if she was siding with the father or if she was okay with the father being a part of the funeral and being a part of the planning. But it was just an awful situation that this young lady lost her life, and then the family treated the father this way. And then I was really disappointed by the number of women, black women, who were, coming out against the dad, saying that he was wrong for, going to the courts and stopping the funeral. And, he needs to show that he paid child support, that he was a part of her life. And I was just like, how rude is that? Like, this man has lost his child too, and he has every right to want to be a part of the funeral. He has every right to stand up and say, you're not going to capitalize off my daughter's death, because you guys know that there's a GoFundMe out there. When I did the last video, it was up to $243,000. And when I checked it the other day, it has surpassed $150,000, which was the ultimate goal. So there was a hearing on Monday that lasted numerous hours. I think it lasted about, well, actually it was supposed to start at 11, and then the judge, I guess, did like a mediation. And so they put all of the reporters and everybody out of the courtroom. Then they recessed and said they would be back at like 3 o'clock. And the reporter that I was following, he never came back. And so I was like, well, what's going on? And then the following day, or later Monday evening, I came across an article that said that the judge came out and announced that the funeral would take place on Thursday, which was today, at 11 a.m. at Concord Baptist Church, and that she had issued a gag order on everybody, like all the family members, the attorneys. Nobody could speak publicly about what transpired in the hearing that they had. So we don't know what the agreement was, but thank God Tatiana has been laid to rest. And so here's an article that I came across. You guys know I just read the article to you instead of trying to rephrase it, okay? So the article says, when Tatiana Jefferson was shot in her home by a police officer this month, her death became a national symbol of the need for police accountability in minority communities, and helped highlight a history of problems with the Fort Worth Police Department. And so I thought it was interesting. I was watching some video footage from the funeral, and there was quite a number of police officers that attended her service. And so I thought that was a goodwill gesture. And then the police officer that shot and killed Tatiana, and for those of you who are not familiar with this case, Tatiana is a 28-year-old black woman who was in her home playing video games with her 8-year-old nephew when a neighbor became concerned because the lights were on and the front door was open. And I think he also said that a back door was open, which was probably a door that was on the side of the house. And so he called the non-emergency police line and said that he was concerned about his neighbor. He needed a wellness check, that it was uncommon for, the door to be open that time of night. And so we also learned that Tatiana was actually living in the home. It was her mother's home, and she had moved back to from, I think it's further in this article where it says she had moved back from, was it Baton Rouge or somewhere else she had moved to, and then she came home to help with the family, I guess because the mother had became ill. But it's further down in this article. And so anyway, the police came, did not knock on the door, did not identify themselves, like yell out police, please come outside or whatever. So they're snooping around the house with the flashlight. Tatiana realizes there's somebody in her backyard. She grabs her gun out of her purse, according to her nephew, and she gets up, and as soon as she's like looking out the window, the officer sees her, and then he yells out, put your hands up or show me your hands, and then opens fire, and he kills her, never gave her an opportunity to respond. We don't know if he saw the gun in her hand or what was his reasoning for opening fire so fast, but he shot through a window, and that could have been a kid at the window. Somebody, the little boy could have been standing in front of her or standing behind her, and he could have killed this little boy. And so the officer's name is Aaron Dean. He's been arrested on murder charges, but the last I read, he was being uncooperative. He's out on a $200,000 bond. He did not give his account of what happened. Police officers have 72 hours from a shooting to file their report and I guess to talk to Internal Affairs and tell them what happened. He actually resigned and never gave his statement about the shooting, and right now he is not cooperating with the investigation. The article goes on to say, but on Thursday, Miss Jefferson's family and friends were remembering her for what she was to them, a hands-on aunt who took her nephews to arcades and playgrounds, a pet lover who could not say no to animals in need, even once adopting a wild rabbit, and a pillar of a family life who, at 28 years old, put her own life on pause to move in with her sick mother. It says, whoever she really cared for, she went all in for, people and animals, said her sister Ashley Carr. Black residents in Fort Worth complained about mistreatment by the police long before Tatiana Jefferson's death. Miss Jefferson's funeral was taking place in Dallas on Thursday morning after being rescheduled amid a family dispute. Miss Jefferson's father, Marquise Jefferson, had argued in court that he should have the authority to make funeral and burial arrangements. He later came to a confidential agreement with Miss Jefferson's mother, Yolanda Carr, who has been mourning her daughter while hospitalized with health problems. The funeral, which was open to the public, drew a crowd to Concord Church, a sleek, modern church in southwest Dallas. A large photo of Miss Jefferson's rested next to sprays of flowers and an open coffin. Although her death had set the Fort Worth community on edge, igniting protests and renewed tensions with city leadership, the mood was quiet and somber ahead of the ceremony. Mayor Betsy Price was in attendance, and a handful of uniformed Fort Worth police officers mingled with the crowd. It says Miss Jefferson, who was known by her nickname Tay, had been part of what her family called the A-Team. 4 siblings whose given names all started with the letter A. She was the youngest with big dreams, and she worked hard to attend college at Xavier University of Louisiana, where she graduated with a degree in biology in 2014. She hoped to one day become a doctor. And then Ashley Carr goes on to say, she was part of the first generation of people in my family to go to college. There were plenty of days of struggling, plenty of days of eating ramen noodles for dinner, but that wasn't a deterrent for her. Recently, Miss Jefferson had been selling medical equipment while studying and saving up to apply for medical school, her sister said. But after their mother got sick, Miss Jefferson agreed to move from Dallas, where she had been living with a roommate, to Fort Worth, where she moved in with her mother, other sister, and nephews, who are 4 and 8 years old. She taught the 8-year-old how to dress himself in the morning and get ready on time for school, and took the 4-year-old to an indoor playground for his birthday, where she showed him how to go down the slide. Her family recalled their bond was so close. Sometimes people think that they are her kids and not mine, her sister Amber Carr said at a news conference earlier this month. Ashley Carr, who does not have children of her own, recalled how she and Miss Jefferson had bonded over their fur babies, which included Miss Jefferson's current brood of 3 cats and 2 dogs. The sisters also dabbled in following the stock market together. We were like, did you see such and such went down today about 10 points? The sisters had money in the market, but it was just the point of that was our camaraderie. Now Ashley Carr has been left to make frequent trips to the house in Fort Worth where her sister was shot. She has been feeding and looking after Miss Jefferson's pets, including the dogs, Olive and Little Bit. She plans to bring the pets back to Houston to stay with her. And she says, it's so wrong. Think about all the times you're at home sitting on the couch watching Netflix and you hear something outside. It could have been anybody. She wasn't doing anything wrong. I can't even say wrong place, wrong time, because she was in her house. And then it talks about the funeral and says hundreds of mourners from across the nation gathered in Dallas on Thursday to grieve the passing of Atiana Jefferson. How she lived is how all aspire to be remembered, as someone who was dedicated to family and to her betterment, said Lee Merritt, the legal representation for Jefferson's mother. Funeral services that had been scheduled for Saturday at the Potter's House in Dallas were postponed and moved to the Concord Church in Dallas on Thursday morning. The parking lot was full, but the church sanctuary where the crowd for the funeral gathered seemed only sparsely occupied. And so I guess when they canceled the funeral that was supposed to be at the Potter's House, which was going to be on Saturday, they were planning, for this big crowd. T.D. Jakes was going to speak. The Reverend Al Sharpton was there. He was going to speak. And that was probably part of the father's concern, was that they were turning this into a spectacle, to give publicity and, to draw these people there so they could give this grandiose speech about police brutality. And he really didn't want that for his daughter. And so, once you take the big parties out of the picture, and then you lose a lot of the crowd. And so I'm not sure how they ended up at Concord, because when the father said that he, where he was going to have the funeral at, I don't think Concord was the church. I think it was going to be probably the church that him and his wife are members of. And so Pastor Brian Carter, who's the minister of Concord Church, said he did not know the family, and said that the church was approached Monday and asked if Concord Church would host the funeral, and they agreed. The family wanted the funeral to represent a beginning of healing, Carter said. And so he says Tatiana was known for being smart and known for being caring. He likened her life to an earthquake. There are moments like that in life, times when it seems as though there is nothing that you can depend on. The truth is that many of us are tired. We are tired of talking to our children about police, tired of crying mothers, tired of funerals, tired of checking the box, tired of hoping the jury will come back with the guilty verdict. The Bible says God is shelter, our refuge when storms come. When the earthquake comes, you run to God. God is also a promise of strength. Not only does God have strength, He is a God who will give you strength. There are things that happen in your life that only God can help you through. And that was part of her eulogy. And it says Fort Worth Mayor Betsy Pierce and several members of City Council were present at the funeral, alongside several city administrators and seen were former Fort Worth Police Chief Joel Fitzgerald conversing with interim Police Chief Ed Krause. Officers hugged Fitzgerald as they passed. Merritt said that the former Dallas Mavericks star Harrison Barnes and Philadelphia Eagles defense tackle Malik Jackson were still paying for the funeral, though through a spokesman, Jackson on Wednesday said that he has reached out to the families in need before to aid when they have reached the low point, and simply put, because it's the right thing to do. So he wasn't going to get involved in all the legalities of what was going on. He said he's helped other families in the past. He wanted to help this family, and so he was going to proceed with what he has promised to do. And then another article, it kind of like just gave a history. It says, before Jefferson died at 28, she graduated with a degree in biology from Xavier University. Had plans to attend medical school, that she was a pharmaceutical sales representative since graduating from college. It says until she gained international recognition for being struck down by a bullet fired by Aaron York Dean, a former Fort Worth police officer who resigned from the force 2 days after killing her. The public knew little about Jefferson's life, goals, or aspirations. The Jefferson shooting occurred about a week after the Amber Geiger, a former Dallas police officer, was sentenced to 10 years in prison for shooting and killing Botham Jean, a black accountant who was sitting in his own home watching television on the day of his killing. And it says Geiger testified at a murder trial in September that she believed Jean was a criminal intruder inside of her apartment, but she later realized after shooting him that she had entered the wrong apartment. And it says in less than a week after Jefferson's death, police released body camera footage of the inside of the house where she was babysitting her nephew, and the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office announced that it would seek an indictment for murder against the ex-police officer. It says hours after Dean resigned, he was arrested by police on a murder charge. Less than 3 hours after his arrest, Dean was freed from jail after satisfying a $200,000 bond. Dean has exercised his right to remain silent, which is available to any suspect, and has not agreed to be interviewed by Fort Worth police detectives investigating the shooting as of Wednesday, according to the police. And then it says so far in 2019, more than 700 people have been shot and killed by police officers, or about 2 to 3 people each day, according to the Washington Post. And if you Google killed by police, this Washington Post, they have been tracking, I think they started tracking police shootings after the Mike Brown incident. I follow this page. I've been following it for a couple of years, but they basically track all police shootings. They tell you the race of the person, the age, city, state. They tell you whether or not the person had a weapon, whether they had a warrant for their arrest, a criminal record. They tell you if the person was unarmed, so you can learn how many unarmed people have been killed by police, whether the person had a history of mental illness, if the person was intoxicated. They tell you, like, if the person was driving the car and the police thought they were going to be hit by the car. Like, it is a really good report, and it also keeps a track of how many unarmed people are killed by police. And so you figure 700, and we are in October. I want to say that is a lower number than what it was last year, because the numbers were high, and it kind of like fluctuates. It goes up and down, but 700 people, and we're at the end of October. That is a low number, so the numbers are going down for people that are killed by the police. So guys, that's it for me. Just wanted to give you guys a follow-up because I had done 2 other videos about Tatiana being shot and killed. Just happy that she's finally laid to rest, and now the family can move on. Just a horrible, horrible situation. But once Mr. Dean starts talking or he goes to trial, I'll come back and I'll cover that. But that could be somewhere down the road, because the Amber Geiger case, she killed Botham Jean in April, I think it was September 6th of 2018, and she just went on trial a few weeks ago. So it could be like a year before this Aaron Dean guy actually goes on trial. And then one other thing, you guys remember Joshua Brown was a witness in the Amber Geiger case. He was killed like a week after Amber Geiger's trial ended. And police came out with this story that he was killed doing a drug deal. They have 2 people in custody, but the actual shooter is still on the loose. I haven't checked today to see if they've caught him, but the last time I checked might have been like 2 days ago, and they didn't have the third person in custody. And I actually tagged the Dallas Police Department in a tweet and asking, like, are y'all still looking for the guy? Like, what happened to the Joshua Brown story? Because regardless of what people are saying about Joshua Brown being a drug dealer and all of this stuff, he still was a human being. He's still someone that lost his life. He still was a witness in, a case against a police officer. And so the community wants answers. And if the police department wants credibility and wants people to believe that they're doing their job, then they need to be transparent about what's going on in these cases. And so if I get any updates on Joshua Brown's murder, I will bring it to you guys. And so that's it for me. Go ahead and leave your comments below, rate the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.